Well, I would like to welcome every listener and everyone to the fifth talk of Talks and Taverns with our guest today, Philippa. Philippa, right? Right? Am I getting
Yes.
it? I'm getting it.
Philippa,
Excellent.
yes.
Excellent. Now,
Hello.
uh, please tell us, who are you? What are you doing? And just start out strong.
Sure. So I'm a RPG writer. I recently released my first one shot on the DM's Guild, which was Spire Top Intrigue into the Aristocracy. And now I'm working on my next big project, which is working on a one shot as a stretch goal for the Kickstarter, long, long run in to the Traveller's Guide to the Candy Realms,
Hmm.
which I believe you talked to Clark about
Yes,
a few episodes back.
I had the honor of presenting that work, and may I just say that he seems like a very level-headed person, and I hope that your experience with him was just amazing because he's so full of passion and quite professional for what he is doing, especially for a first timer. So I would love to hear your experience if you have with him
Sure.
since you are writing for him.
Yes. Well, yeah, I mean, it's been great so far.
Mm-hmm.
He put out a call for writers. So they've met their Kickstarter main goal and they wanted to
Mm-hmm.
do some stretch goals. So they put out a call for did anyone want to write a one shot
Mm-hmm.
based on the setting to be sold alongside the setting guide as a stretch goal, which they've met their first one, which is for some different candy races. And
Mm-hmm.
then this is the second one, which if they get to £2,000, um, then this will be released alongside it. And I think they're only £200 off at the moment, so it looks like it's going to happen, which is great.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that, and I wish all the best of luck. I saw so much potential in that world that they're building, and I'm very happy that they reached out to others to help create stories in that world because it's a big world. Like
Mm.
like actually, I'll keep those questions for later.
Sure.
So, get, tell us as much as you can without spoiling it.
Yeah. So it's going to be just a one shot, so that this can be a starting point for your campaign if you wanted. We're pitching it for probably about 4 players at level 4 to 5 for
Mm-hmm.
D&D. Although you could obviously alter some of the stats and things if you
Mm-hmm.
wanted to. And it's set in the Candy Kingdom, which Clark has described to me as Candy Venice,
Oh.
with chocolate canals and things. And so the hook which we're going with is the Candy King, who lives in the Candy Kingdom, puts on a grand exhibition each year. And this year, Candace Corn, the candy inventor, has gone a little bit too far and has created a candy creature which has now escaped. And the adventurers will need to run through Candy Venice or the Candy Kingdom, trying to find it before perhaps other more nefarious members of the kingdom try and find it as well. So they need to keep an eye out for Yorkie Mint and the Dolce Delito gang also trying to get their hands on this candy monster before they can find
Well, that is quite a hook. That is
it.
quite a fun one. That is quite a fun one, trying to catch a giant candy monster.
Yes.
So how much do you have absolute freedom regarding it?
Um,
In the constraints of the world, of
yeah,
course, of course.
yeah. So I'm working with the team, obviously, and there's a lot of me going, what happens if this happens? And does this monster already exist? Or, tell me more about this. And then they're giving me more information so that it ties into the setting. Um,
Hmm.
but they're giving me a reasonable amount of free reign based on that initial pitch.
Hmm.
So they're checking in and but basically going, yes, this sounds fun. So I'm been given quite a lot of creative freedom to really make an interesting one shot for people to enjoy as well. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's quite a lot of openness there, which is
Hmm.
nice.
Now, one shots in and of itself are a very interesting beast. Let's call
Yes.
them like that, because one shots, mm, I wouldn't say they're underappreciated. But I think people come in on one shots thinking, aha, one and done adventure or just a
Yeah.
starting point, which I presume not many, at least I hope not many people come with it. Because one shots offer such a wonderful opportunity for new and old players to experience something that maybe might not be part of the campaign, but still
Mm-hmm.
a wonderful, may I call it like how do they call it? In a show when an episode is just there to fill in the
Yes,
time.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Like the musical episode of a show,
Uh,
or like the Halloween episode or
yes,
something.
yes, like a special episode. Now, and
Yeah.
you've written already a one shot, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, what drove you to writing a one shot instead of going a full campaign?
So firstly,
Oh yeah, I
writing a whole
apologize.
campaign.
One more question before. Do you consider
Oh,
yourself more
sure.
of a DM or a player?
Ooh, both at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I am DMing a home campaign at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
and have DM'd several one shots as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I also do play a lot as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I also
Mm-hmm.
don't just play D&D. I've played some Call of Cthulhu system,
Oh,
um,
phenomenal.
where my partner is planning a, Monster of the Week cryptid hunter campaign at the
Oh,
moment.
I was very
So,
interested in Delta Green regarding creature
mm,
hunting and stuff like that. That's a great theme. That's a great theme, and I'm glad
yeah,
you're open to trying other systems. I
yeah,
think
definitely,
I think in today's time, everybody focuses a bit too much on D&D, which isn't a
yeah,
bad thing. Not at all. Not at all a bad
yeah.
thing, because D&D 5e is very easily approached. It's not a snarling
Mm.
beast that's gnawing
And
at you.
also, you probably already know, like, if you're getting into RPGs, you already know someone who plays D&D, most likely, or has done it. So there's always someone to help you with it. Whereas I think if you're starting a new system as well as starting RPGs at all, it
Hmm.
can be a bit daunting. So yeah, I think it's useful to have, even if it's a bit of like a overarching monopoly,
Yeah, yeah.
it is good.
No, I agree completely. And do continue. Sorry, I cut you off at it there.
What I was saying about being a DM and a player. Oh yeah, so
Yes.
yeah, I would say I'm probably both because I enjoy playing and DMing.
Hmm.
But yeah, and also in terms of you're saying about like, would you write? Why did I choose a one shot over a campaign?
Yes.
And I think for publishing, it's firstly a lot easier to just write a one and
Hmm.
done,
Hmm.
contained story. But also that was how I got into DMing myself. Was I found the Uncaged anthology,
Hmm.
which is a collection of mythology themed and female monster themed stories where they twist the story usually to show a different side of the monster.
Ooh.
Um, it's really, really good. There's 4 volumes now. I would totally recommend it to anyone, particularly if you're interested in stuff that's not necessarily all combat heavy, because it definitely involves a lot more sort of moral choices and thinking about why you're fighting the specific monster you're fighting.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I started DMing with that, and then I moved on to a campaign where I used some of those one shots to drop into the campaign. So for me, I think one shots are really great, and so I thought, well, it makes sense to write one.
Hmm.
But also, I decided to do that because I took part in the RPG Writers Summer Workshop,
Oh.
which is organised by Ashley Warren. And it's really, really good. It's a month-long course where you basically go from set idea to publishing your first adventure.
Oh, that sounds very
So
fun.
yeah, so for me, like it made sense to follow that structure of just doing a one-off adventure,
Hmm. Hmm.
because that's what the lessons were designed for.
Hmm. How did you get into all of this? When did you start? What's your
So
street? I'm asking you for your street cred right now.
yeah, yeah. So my dad actually played original D&D
Oh,
back when he was in college with my mum and my aunt.
oh, that's
And
great.
so when I was a little kid, like on long car journeys and things, he'd be like, "Just look at this monster manual for 5 hours while
Oh
we
yeah,
drive
look
to
at the pretty
Wales."
pictures. Look at all these
Yeah.
monsters. They're great.
Oh, now you keep going on about all the monsters. Oh no. um, but then I started playing myself when I got to university, and I joined the RPG society of my university.
Oh, I'm
And actually,
so jealous. I'm so
the
jealous.
first one I did was Call of Cthulhu, actually,
Mm-hmm.
because that was what was free to join in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then I kind of graduated onto D&D because for me, I prefer a more fantasy setting, so it made more
Hmm.
sense
Yeah,
to do
that's
that.
fine. I think the people prefer fantasy because they understand. Oh, it's fantasy. That there's no in quotation marks reality regarding this. So
Yeah,
I think that's why
yeah.
people gravitate towards more of the fantastic. And later on in their let's call it role playing life, or I don't know how to
Yeah,
call
your
it.
roleplay journey.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. In your role play journey, you decided, this looks really interesting. Like
Yeah,
this is something out of the box. Like this is something new.
definitely. Yeah.
Excellent. But
I think
yes.
also it depends on like what everyone else around you is playing. So like most of the time I'm playing with like my friends from university
Hmm.
who I met there, and they all play D&D. So of course we still play D&D, but we're now getting to the point where some of them are going, oh, I want to try something else. So we're thinking of trying, for example, a quest game soon, to
Ooh.
see if we like that system, and things like that. So I think I've been ready for a while to carry on my RPG journey, but some of my
Hmm.
friends are kind of like now going, "Oh, actually, yes, we'd like to try something else as well."
Oh, that's great. That's great when the entire group is down to try out
Yeah,
something new. Uh, so when you decide to write one shot,
yeah.
what does that encompass exactly to you? To you, what should a one shot have?
Hmm. So to me, a one shot needs to be able to be played in one session. Obviously, it's in the name,
Hmm.
but within that, I think sometimes that can mean like it could be a whole day, and that to me is a little bit much, uh, because you're normally trying to fit sessions in around other parts of your life. So
Yes,
for me, it
yes.
needs to be something that can be done with some exploration and interesting twists and turns and enough branches to keep it interesting, but it still needs to be able to come to a satisfying conclusion within that one session time frame, ideally.
Hmm.
However, um, I do also quite like having sort of now that this is finished, what could you do next? Sort of at the end of
To leave it a little bit
a
open.
few threads that someone like could pick up on if they wanted to. So, for
Mm.
example, with Spiretop, it's a one and done adventure in and of itself, but the people, so it's set in this Aarakocra city called Spiretop. You could continue playing in that city now that you know how it works,
Hmm.
and kind of weave that into a further stories that
Hmm.
you write yourself.
Oh, that's great. So you, as well as giving them a story, you give them a small setting as well if they wish to continue there.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
That is very cool. That is very cool. Again, when you come, do you take in consideration? Actually, let me rephrase that.
Hmm.
How do you calculate how long a one shot might take? Do you even do that?
Um, so the main way to work it out, which I do, is to play test it. So you get some
Hmm.
friends together and get them to have a go, and then you go, how long did this take?
Hmm.
But also, I've seen a lot of advice out there, and it tends to agree that a combat encounter usually takes about half an hour to an hour, and a social encounter takes about 30 minutes. So if you work out how long that should take, add in a little bit of exploring time, you can work out roughly how long your adventure should
Hmm.
take.
Hmm.
And then obviously, the more general DMing you do, the more you'll kind of understand that as well. So kind
Hmm.
of it's slightly just from experience,
So it all
but
comes
also then
together,
you test it
basically.
as well. Yeah,
Yeah, it all comes together with the experience
yeah.
and everything. What do you prefer? Do you prefer combat, role play, the exploration part?
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, it's all about finding a balance depending on the one shot.
Yeah.
Is it a combat heavy, a story heavy one? What's regard? But what do you
Mm.
personally prefer?
For me, absolutely role play,
Hmm.
100% of the time.
Hmm.
um, I do enjoy a bit of combat, but yeah, definitely for me, I have a background of performing and doing particularly like improv and
Hmm.
things, so I really enjoy doing characters. So getting to do that
Hmm.
for a whole
I
session and pretend
personally
is really,
work
really
in a
fun.
theater. I personally work in a theater,
Mm,
so I can completely understand where you're coming from there. So
yeah,
character development, character interaction is something I love. It doesn't even have to involve my own character. I just love seeing it happen before my eyes, especially if it's spontaneous or something like
yeah.
that.
Yeah. And then the other aspect for me is also I enjoy playing a character of like a similar intelligence to me because I think it's hard to play someone above your intelligence, but
Hmm.
I like thinking of creative solutions to problems as well,
Hmm.
which I think comes in with exploration and role play mostly.
That's always interesting. I've recently seen on YouTube. I follow a person that does book reviews, and he
Mm,
released a video. I didn't watch it. I just saw it published, and I think it's on my watch later list. It's like
mm, mm.
it's called "How to Write a Character That's Smarter Than You," and
Yeah.
I find it hilarious because I never thought about it.
I mean, if you think about it, it's a bit of a problem because you can't be smarter than you are. So
Yes. Yes.
unless you can say I want to roll intelligence, and then the DM can tell you, but that's not as satisfying as
Hmm.
you, the player, figuring it out and then saying, oh well, my character knew this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I always try and either play same level or down, because I think it would be too difficult to work out if you if your character was cleverer than you.
Mhm.
And also then it means judging your own intelligence, which is a bit uh,
It's not the
bit of a
it's
humble brag that
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
so smart, so
Oh my god, I'm
perhaps I
so
can really
smart.
clever.
My character will be twice as smart as I am, but that means
Yes,
I
just
am
so
smart. It's
smart.
like that. That's why intelligence is a dumb stat for me.
Yeah.
What are your inspirations for writing? Do you have a favorite author, a
Mm.
book, something that got you into all of that?
Sure. I mean, very widely. I do write reading lots of different things, so lots of
That's
different
great.
things do inspire me. But I do enjoy. So my sort of day job, if you where is I'm doing a PhD in medieval history.
Oh, we'll get to
Uh,
that. Don't worry. We're gonna talk
we'll talk
about
more about
that.
that in a bit.
Oof.
But like that really inspires me a lot, because there's so many interesting sources about, like, there's like ghost stories and sermons and exemplar of all these weird things people do, and I just love, like, the reason I like history is because it's all these interesting stories of everyday people. So I'm a cultural historian, so I enjoy
Mm-hmm.
sort of everyday goings on, like, oh, Marjorie has decided to go on a pilgrimage and now is crying in France and everyone's left her behind, what will she do? Like, that's the sort of thing I love about history, and then I like to bring that into my game. It helps also my main campaign, my home campaign, I was playing with my other PhD friends who are all also medieval historians. So
Mm.
I'll be like, we're just going to take a pause to talk about statues for 5 minutes,
Yes,
and then someone else will be like,
yes,
can
yes,
we
of
talk
course.
about this medieval parliament, please? How does this work?
Yes, yes. Since I'm an art historian, when we play, sometimes another
Yeah,
player
yeah,
of mine is also an art historian. And then we mess with the DM, who now started
yeah.
learning about
Tell me more.
architecture. Yeah, what is the peristyle like?
Yeah.
What does
Can you
it
tell me what type of
depict?
material this is?
Hmm. What kind of pillar is it? I mean, we are
Yeah.
messing a bit with him, but it's all in good fun. It's all in good fun.
Yeah, but that, yeah, definitely stuff like that. It sort of creeps in as well. I don't really mean it to, and then I'll realize, like, oh, I've made a whole session around around this saint's cult. Whoops.
Good.
Um,
There's so
but
many.
they enjoy it, so it's
I,
fine.
I'm scared that this is just going to devolve into us rambling about medieval iconography and stuff
Uh,
like that, which I'm all
yeah,
for, but maybe
but this is,
later.
yeah, no, off topic. Yes. But yeah, that's a big inspiration. And then also, I really like, for example, Neil Gaiman,
Mm,
Garth Nix. I've just been rereading the Abhorsen series.
hmm.
Sort of quite high, sort of not high fantasy, like nitty gritty fantasy of
Oh,
like,
that's what I was about to
yeah.
ask you. Are you more of a high fantasy, low fantasy, like a middle ground kind of person? Because these days, fantasy very much gets, how should I put it, categorized. It's not
Mm,
just, oh, I'm reading fantasy now.
yeah,
It's
which
like,
actually is hard to say sometimes, because it seems, I do think it still fluctuates between those categories.
oh,
So
absolutely. I mean, personally as well. Absolutely. I mean, it always did, but every time, usually in my circles, since I'm from where I am from, usually when you tell someone, ah, fantasy, they're like, okay, Lord of the Rings. And there's like,
yeah,
and it's like, yes, but technically
but also,
no. Yes, but also there is
yeah,
Scott Lynch, there is Brandon Sanderson, there is Terry Pratchett, there's a lot of
yeah,
versions of fantasy.
definitely. For me, I think the stuff I enjoy is very broad. Then the style it ends up being is quite fun and not too dark. I don't really need a strong fantasy realism element in my D&D. I
Hmm.
like a bit of silliness and
Oh,
fun.
absolutely, absolutely. I gave up on like when I just started out reading back in the kiddie days.
Yeah,
Everything was like, oh, you must read this Russian realist author, and I'm like, no, no, I'm
no thanks.
sick of reality. Thanks, thanks. I
Yeah, exactly.
appreciate the man's work, absolutely, but I need my dragons. I need my fireballs. I need something to escape from this reality,
Yeah,
and I think that's the entire point of tabletop RPGing in general, be it Vampire the Masquerade, D&D, Call of Cthulhu, that it's all there for us to escape the confines of reality.
yes.
And now let's to return back to the topic at hand.
Hmm.
Uh, one shots are the perfect thing for that because
Yes.
one can just pick it up and even not even prepare it for like a day. He can just pick up almost like a manual. Some
And
of
just
them,
go.
not all of them, not all of them. Some can be
Yeah.
just picked up and hey, go. You can just say, guys, we're gonna play this. I'm gonna go through it. So I apologize if I'm a bit slow. What kind of writing do you think goes into all of that? Should it be in depth? Should it be more like footnotes? Should it be just
Hmm.
the more important things? Should it be fluffed up with some flavor? What is your opinion on that?
So the ones that I like, and therefore I try and emulate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't want too much prose. I do want to be able to tell what's going on. So there was a great Twitter thread recently. Actually, someone had said like actually what layout is important for a one shot, and I think that comes
Oh.
into it a lot. So, for example, putting for the DM what actually happens at the start. I
Mm.
think is super important because you're not telling it as a story for the DM to discover. They need to know what's going on straight away. It's
Yeah,
the players
they
who are going
need
to
to know
discover
it
it.
in the first two lines. They need to
Yeah,
know.
because so Spytop's quite a good example actually. If I toot my own horn, do
Of
my own work, but
course.
because it's like a mystery, the DM needs to know what's going on. Otherwise, they won't know the clues to tell people. So
Hmm.
they need to understand why those clues are there. So I've put at the beginning like, what are the motivations of everyone? Here's what's going on. So you actually know what's happening. So I think that's the most important part of the writing.
Hmm.
I do like a bit of description, obviously, to kind of get the feel of what's going on, and I like the read aloud boxes and things.
Oh,
But
for sure,
I don't
for sure.
I don't want too much of that because then, as a DM, when I'm playing it, I don't want to feel like I need to do it exactly this way. So
Hmm.
I think it's good to have a bit of freedom as well.
Oh, that's what I was just going to say. Is there a wrong way to play a one shot, in your opinion?
No, probably not. I mean, it's once you've bought it, it's up to you how you want to play it.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
would say it's good to read it ahead of time to work out what you're gonna
Oh, yes, of
do.
course. If you're an
um,
everyone, if you're an organized DM, please read it at least a few hours beforehand because
yeah,
God knows I ain't.
but like, yeah, I mean, it's up to you how you want to play it.
Hmm.
I think maybe the only thing is, again, Uncaged Anthology is a good example. They put like content warnings for if there's something in it. I think that's important to check through and make sure your players are comfortable
Hmm.
like with
Hmm.
what you're going to be playing because you don't know if you haven't read it ahead of time, you don't know what's going to be in it, and it
Hmm.
might be something that you don't actually want to do. So that would maybe be the only thing I would say about like approaching a one shot is you should probably read it through at
Yeah,
least once.
at least read just through the important bits,
Yeah,
just to
exactly.
be
Or
sure
like,
that the main things aren't like
yeah, or like for
nasty.
me, read through because you might need to make a map or something. Uh,
Mm, mm-hmm.
did this happen to me? I was reading through and I missed one, and then I was like, I need to make a map really quickly on roll 20.
Oh,
Quick,
oh,
we're not doing theatre of the mind. I'm not ready. So that happened, yes. So
oh,
check
gods.
if you need maps.
That is a wise I apologize. That is a good thing to say and warn everyone. But yes,
Yes,
people do read your one shots, kids. Read your
yeah.
one shots, please. We
Prepare.
beg of you.
But it does cut down on prep time
Mm,
otherwise, as long as you've read it. So that's good.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So do you play? Do you find time to play or DM when you're doing a one shot, or you just focus on completely writing it? What is your thought process behind it?
Like when I'm writing something.
Yes, when you're
Um,
sitting down with your cup of tea and you decided, yes, I'm going to sit down and punch out like 3 pages of a one shot.
yeah. No, I've been keeping up my home campaign that I've been DMing while I've been writing
Mm-hmm.
my projects. So yeah, I think I've just made sure to set aside some time for both.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I then ran, I ran the one shot as part of the campaign
Uh-huh. Do
to
you
test
sneak
it.
in parts of one shots that you're writing
Yeah,
into? Oh, that's great. That's great.
but that's also because the game we're playing, we started it as just a it's lockdown, we can't meet in person. I'll do DM something. We'll just do a couple of one shots that kind of loosely link together,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's turned into a proper story. So it still has the structure for me to be able to go, okay, this week we're just doing a one shot because I'm busy. So we call it camp adventure because the idea is that they're all teenagers at camp adventure, the summer camp for budding adventurers, and
Oh
then
man.
they have like a little board where people are like, oh, we need some people from camp adventure to come and help us, and then it can either be something I've written or it can be something I've slotted in from somewhere else.
Oh, that is adorable. I like it. I love it actually. That's great. This is like an adventurous camp.
Yeah, it's sort of inspired by like Lumberjanes by Noel Stevenson
Oh, I
or
read
Percy
it. I read
Jackson.
Lumberjanes. Oh, Lumberjanes is great. I love the art
Yeah,
style there. I love
yeah,
the art style.
yes.
Oh man. Uh, another
But
thing.
yeah, it allows me to do other things as well. If I need a week off, I can just
Oh,
go,
of
oh, I'll just pick
course.
something from some of the things I found.
Another thing I wanted to really ask you: when do you know you're done with it, with a one shot?
That's a good question. Um, I think, I mean, a lot of the time you could always do a little bit more, couldn't you? Because
Oh, that's why I'm
you
asking
as
because.
you as the person making it is always going to feel, oh, I could do something else. But I think for me, it needs to be pretty much like the structure needs to be done before the playtest, and the playtest is going to inform you, like,
Mm,
am I done yet? Because if they don't, if the DM and the players testing it can't complete the story or don't know what's going on,
mhm,
that tells you need a lot more work. But if they're pretty happy with it, then you know you're pretty much done and you can just make a few tweaks and things.
mhm, mhm,
Um, so that's quite a good sign, I think, if you, that you're done.
mhm.
And also just set a deadline and say, okay, it's going to be done by this point.
Oh God. It's like, okay, I typed till then, it's done. Please leave me. Please leave
Yeah,
me be.
it's finished.
Uh, that's very interesting because one shots need to be everything and yet need to be so condensed and so
Mm-mm.
clean, tight. Everything needs
Yeah.
to fit perfect, like a watch. Let's say it's a
Yes.
watch.
Yeah.
Everything needs to be meticulously placed in order. Every wheel needs to be greased and oiled. And I'm in awe of people who do write one shots. So I'm in awe of
Mm.
your work right away. I can tell you that
Thanks.
right away. I'm a very when I DM, I'm very improvisational and very
Mm-mm.
casual regarding like that. Like if I'm relaxed, my players will not notice I didn't prepare anything,
Yeah.
and it's like very. It makes me very happy to see people that are uh, how do you say it, capable of putting their adventure on those few pages. Now, in your
It
opinion,
is. Yeah, it's quite a test, I think,
yeah, of
but
writing
having
skills and story writing and everything, and
mm,
it's a balancing act. It's a
yeah,
balancing act of
but
all
also
sorts of
I
things.
think sometimes having restraints can make you more creative.
Oh, absolutely. I don't like people that think, oh, I'm so, oh, I have a deadline till then, or I have to work in this. No, this is great. No, this is great. You
Yeah.
get to work in a confined, in quotation marks, confined space in your head
Mm.
where you must be creative to get
Yeah,
through
and
it.
it forces you to edit, which is I think very important for most writing things. I
So,
mean, I think.
no, no,
Sorry,
continue,
go.
continue, please,
Oh
please.
well, I was just going to say I think I have an advantage where because I write academic style writing most of the
Mm-hmm.
time for my PhD,
Mm-hmm.
that forces you to be very concise and get to the point and not be too flowery, which actually transfers quite well for a
Mm-hmm.
instructional one shot where like because you're telling someone else how to do it, you need to be able to get them to understand how it works quite quickly. And obviously, I've already been doing that for
Mm-hmm.
like how I normally write. So like sometimes that I get told like, oh, it's a bit academic, in like a bit dry in my academic writing, but then that translates quite well if you then add in fantasy prose on top of it because it's
Mm-hmm.
you're basically writing an instruction manual, but that's got
So
nice
what you're
fantasy
saying, you
elements.
have an unfair advantage, but that's okay. That's fine.
I have a
Sure,
yeah, I
sure.
have the skills. I have a
Yeah,
certain set of skills, and I'm going to use them. No.
just a humble brag, real quick. Like,
No, but genuinely, I mean, I did this as part of the RPG Writers Workshop, and that was really helpful. And I would
mm-hmm.
recommend it to anyone. Like, you can also do it for free. So, like, I'm not advertising it or anything for them. You can do a free version, and it was super helpful.
Well,
And it
excellent.
definitely
Advertise
like,
it.
and it sets, yeah, and it sets like really manageable like goals throughout the month to do it. So that was really helpful as well. So I would say, like, don't feel like you need to be held back if you've not done something like that before.
Hmm.
It just happens to help me because I already have experience doing sort of things that then apply to that as well.
Well, I'm personally all for using all the advantages a person can get in any sort of scenario. So you have my vote to just do what you're doing. But do you ever think that maybe all that your academic education, your knowledge of writing such things, do you think there is mm, like a point where that you will reach where you're like, okay, now I mastered one shots.
Not yet, that's for sure.
Mm.
um, oh, I don't know, because each one you're going to write is going to be different. So
Hmm.
each story you write, you're going to have to think about how it works in a certain way. So I don't know if you could say you necessarily mastered one shots in general, but you
Hmm.
can certainly improve on your style. So I
Hmm.
suspect, probably this time next year I'll be going, oh, splatter top, blah.
Oh my
I've
God!
improved so much since
You're
then.
like, oh my, did I write this?
Did I write
Did
that?
did I write that?
But as you do more, you will improve. So I don't think the more time you spend doing something, you'll get better at it. But I don't think necessarily you need to worry about mastering it or not. It's, have
Hmm.
you presented the story you're trying to write in this moment in the best possible
Hmm.
way?
Hmm. Uh, in a one shot, the presentation, I presume, is one of the key elements. Be it
Yeah.
story wise or visual, as you have said.
Hmm.
What do you think is an important feature each one shot, a person that is listening and wants to write a one shot, what would you tell him that your one shot must contain?
Well, let's. I'm going to twist your question and say let's what it doesn't need to contain. Doesn't necessarily need to have pictures,
Hmm.
because one thing that I thought was really helpful in the workshop was this lesson on accessibility. And we need to remember that not everyone who's reading a one shot is necessarily looking at it. So you should be making a version that is suitable for screen readers and for people who are visually impaired, or
Hmm.
might have be colorblind and can't see all of the colors you're showing. So actually, I think it's useful if you could run your one shot without any pictures and without any maps.
Hmm.
Now, that
Interesting.
being said, the thing that is useful, I think you should definitely include is, yeah, I think, as I say, like an overview, I think is the most important thing, because then if the players go off piste, you know where the end point and the goal is to get back to, uh, and so that you understand like basically the story behind the one shot, so that if things change, it doesn't matter because the DM still feels prepared.
Hmm. Hmm. You're giving the DM Joker cards, basically.
Yeah,
Get
yeah,
out of jail free cards.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. How much of your academic life and the knowledge you have gathered there have gone into your writing?
Mm. So
And I don't mean the technique or the way
yeah,
of
yeah,
writing or something,
yeah.
but your experiences
Inspiration.
and knowledge you have gathered. Do you think, uh, if you look at it, do you think it's a bit too much? Is it just right amount? Is it too little? Do you wish to find a correct mix and match of all of this?
Sure. I don't think topic wise,
Mm-hmm.
not masses have gone
Mm-hmm.
into it yet. I would quite like to in the future write some more projects based on like some of the stories and things I've read from history.
I'd
Uh,
love to see like a legit medieval one shot in D&D. I
yeah.
think that would be amazing.
Although then you have to contend with what even is medieval, but that's a whole nother
Oh
conversation.
God, let's not. Let's not.
Let's not, no, let's not get
Oh,
into that. Anyway, but I do think one thing that informs it a lot from that is, as I say, I'm a cultural historian, so I
mm-hmm.
look a lot at like, sort of what's everyday life like, what do people kind of get up to in their daily practices.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like that bit goes in a lot to my world building and sort of characters and thinking about why does this place exist and why is this problem a problem. And that's something I think I have brought over, is just sort of knowledge of like generally how people mess things up and how
Oh,
conflict occurs.
oh, and they sure did back in the good old days. Am I
Yeah.
right?
um, so yeah, I think that informs my work quite a lot.
You,
But I
mm,
think I don't think it'll be obvious necessarily. Like
Mm-hmm.
someone listening to me now talking about this might see it, but I don't think it's necessarily super obvious
Mm-hmm.
if you're reading my work.
Mm-hmm. Back to the Kickstarter a bit. Are you a bit
Hmm.
nervous? Are you a bit nervous of writing this?
I guess. Not really. I mean, I'm mostly excited, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. I think it sounds like a really fun setting, and I'm excited for the story. I guess, yeah, I'm nervous because I think this will probably bring my work to a slightly larger group of people, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously, the more people who see it, the more likely it is that someone wouldn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
But
The sad
also,
reality we have to contend with, yes.
yeah, like not everyone's going to like every single other person's work. People play RPGs in different ways, so it doesn't really bother me that might be the case. But I guess the first negative comment when it happens probably will be difficult. But after that, I'll just go meh.
Huh, it's there, I don't care.
Yeah,
I did my best.
if they've got actual criticism, I'll take it on board, and if they don't, they don't. So
Absolutely.
it's fine.
Constructive criticism is that what we strive for. We can't
Yeah,
just go all around thinking, giving each other pats on the backs when you should give a person a constructive criticism.
yeah.
There are polite ways to do that, and people should be more open towards that.
Mm.
Because I see mostly people are either, oh, this is amazing, or oh, this is the worst thing ever.
Yeah, you need a bit of
And
nuance.
that's so bad. That's so in both aspects. In both
Mm.
aspects, you there is. I mean, of course, the positive aspect is a bit more positive. I'm not saying it's the
Yeah,
worst thing when somebody praises your work, but it's always good to say something that, in your opinion, should have been done differently in a
yeah.
polite, organized manner.
Exactly, yeah. But also, I think it is quite difficult. It can be difficult to work out why you didn't like something.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
like, learning to give constructive criticism is a skill in itself.
Of course.
Just as learning to take it is a skill, and you need to practice
Absolutely,
it.
absolutely, and I think more people should get on board with both of those facts.
Yeah.
Uh, so you are in contact with the team on the
Yes.
Kickstarter. Was there ever a moment where you sent something over there like, no, 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 you have to change this completely?
Not really, no. So mostly that's just I'm going, yeah, that sounds fun. That sounds fun. Yes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But no, they've been really good, and I like working with them so far, obviously. um,
And I hope you do in the
and
it
hopefully that will continue.
continuously.
Yes.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I think it's very collaborative and making sure because we're trying to make it obviously fit with the setting. So
Mm-hmm,
I'm trying to say, oh well, what happened? What monsters fit in this, and what sounds good here. But also, yeah, they're excited. I think to have someone kind of using their setting in a creative way. So
mm-hmm,
yeah,
mm-hmm.
so far not been really too much saying no to anything, which is nice.
Oh, yeah, obviously. Did you get like a document or something telling you in terms what the world is? Like, did they
Um,
prepare you in any sort of way for it?
no, they just said like if there's areas of the world you want to learn about, ask us, and then they could like let me
Mm-hmm.
know sort
Okay,
of the plans for that
so
bit.
it's on a need to know basis then.
Not necessarily. It's more so that they had to be funded for the Kickstarter to be able to finish it. So
Oh yeah,
it's
of
part
course.
of it is slightly like they haven't always got to every single bit yet. So
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
um, and that's also why it's focused on one area so that I can be like, okay, you need to finish this bit first, so I know what's going on here.
You're like,
um,
guys, excuse me, excuse me. You're
what
like,
about this bit?
excuse me,
Yeah.
this on this paper, on this paper.
Yeah,
Yes,
but
yes.
actually, no, that hasn't really been a problem because it was mostly okay. Who's the cool people in this bit, and what are some cool locations you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
do?
Give me the
So
NPCs, give
that's
me the
been fine.
setting, and we're off to the races.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not really like I actually don't really need to see all of it. I only need to see that area basically.
Mm-hmm. What inspired you to do your first one shot?
Mm.
What got you
So
there?
well, firstly, it started as I decided to. As I said, my dad got me into D&D because he'd played the original. He'd never played 5e, so I went to stay with them for a bit during lockdown, um, and I was like, "Do you want to try fifth edition and see how it's changed?" And he was like, "Yeah." So I did like a little game for them,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was thinking like, "Oh, okay, how can I change it next?" And my dad's character was Felix O'Claw, a ranger shifter,
Oh.
and his like preferred enemy. He kind of like picked it at random slightly. His preferred enemy were his preferred terrain was the Underdark. That was it. So I was like, okay, how can they get to the Underdark? And I was like, what if they need to climb up this mountain and go down the middle? So that was in my head. I was like, cool mountain city. And then we ended up not playing it for some reason. I think my mum decided she didn't want to play anymore.
Aw,
Um,
mom.
Mostly because she was busy doing other things. And also she was like, there's too many rules for me. This is more difficult.
Oh.
Um, uh, but I couldn't get the image of this like city in the clouds out of my brain. And I
Mhm.
was like, oh, I really like this idea. And I'd sort of thought of this idea of this, oh, what is Aarakocra City? So I was like, okay, what would happen if you went there? And then I sort of worked on that. And then that's kind of where it came from, basically, was this image of this sort of city looming out of the mountains in the clouds with all
Mhm.
these Aarakocra birds flying around.
Oh, what an
And it
image.
developed
What a
from that.
sight.
Yeah. That's kind of how a lot of my kind of ideas start, is I'll have a sort of an image of a scene,
Mhm.
also like a movie scene, and kind of want to explore that a bit more.
Mhm. Mhm. Do you commission artists for the one shots for decoration purposes or stuff like that?
So I didn't
Or do you believe in that less pictures more text kind of situation?
I think it's still nice to add pictures. I
Mm.
was just saying, like, it's good to think about how
Yes, yes,
you shouldn't
of
rely
course.
on the pictures,
Yes,
basically.
yes.
Um,
Relying and putting them to putting them
yeah,
in is two
exactly.
different things. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So I didn't commission any for Spiretop. I made the cover myself,
Oh,
and then I used
an artist and a
stock.
writer. Amazing
Yeah,
talent everywhere.
thanks. Yeah, but yeah, so I did the cover myself, and then I used stock art from DM's Guild and also from some like commercial stock sites for the inside pages. And then for the Candy Realms one, Rachel Frost is the artist working on
Hmm.
the book, so we're going to use some of the art from the book, and then we're still working out what we're going to do for the cover for that. But I do think in the future I might commission someone, but
Hmm.
partially also I wasn't sure how well Spartop would do, so I didn't
Hmm.
really want to sink a
Go
load of
all
money
out.
into commission
Go
something.
all out in it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
because I want
completely
to pay
respect that.
someone well, so I don't, I need to have enough money to be able to do that
Hmm.
first.
Hmm. Uh, d- so you're currently working on this. Is there another project you have in mind after the Kickstarter, or are you
Um,
taking a break?
I'll probably take a slight break.
Hmm.
Uh, be, but as I say, I did like the idea of doing these sort of one shots based off some ghost stories that
Oh man,
I've
I
read,
love ghost
medieval
stories.
ghost
I've
stories.
been wasting my days on YouTube watching like
Yeah,
real ghost sightings and stuff like that. It's terrible.
yeah.
It's terrible. But I
But
love
then
ghost stories. Love them.
I wanted to try and use ones that are slightly less well known. So, for example, I think people in the UK will know it, but the Bloody Mary myth is quite fun. So that's something I played as a kid. Is like you say Bloody Mary into a mirror 3 times and she's supposed to appear. It's a bit like Beetlejuice. Um, and I was like looking into that, and I was like, oh, this is actually really interesting. Like where this came from. People think it was maybe like um, Bloody Mary the Queen and things like that. And then like medieval ghost stories are a bit different because they're designed also to sort of like have a moral message usually behind them. Like the person who's
Educational,
a
yeah.
ghost, yeah, the person who's a ghost is usually trying to get you to pray for them or something. So
Mm,
like I quite like that as an idea beyond just like oh spooky ghost. It's like no, ghost is trying to get you to help them with something
mm,
usually.
mm.
So that's kind of what I'm interested in working on
Oh man,
in the future, but
I'm
there's no
super
date on
excited.
that yet.
I'm super excited about that. I'm super excited about that because that is very closely related to my paper that I'm writing.
Hmm.
It's about fairy tales and simple literature influencing the mind of people. And
Mm-mm.
I love children's stories. I adore them. They're be they spooky, educational, doesn't matter in my opinion. They are the
Yeah.
cornerstone of everything we have, in my opinion. And I man, I'm gonna buy that. I'm gonna buy that one shot when it comes out because you're telling me spooky stuff and related to my field. Hell
Yeah.
yeah! Like yes, give me more in horror in quotation marks.
Yeah, but not necessarily like spooky horror, more sort of like morally questioning your existential existence.
The worst kind of horror. Moral horror.
Makes you the player stare into the void as opposed to the character. Yeah.
Oh man. I
But
don't.
yeah, it's just stuff that's kind of inspired by my interests,
No, perfect.
be
Well,
they
what
medieval or
better
anything
to
else.
do with your interests than trying to translate them into something for other people as well,
Yeah,
especially into something that is so customizable.
exactly. And I think it's also quite interesting. So uh, I went to this talk about using video games to teach about the medieval period.
Oh,
And it is related, I promise, which is then after listening to that, I was like, I wonder if you could use D&D to teach about the medieval period. Um, and if you introduced elements of some sort of story into it and people actually played it, would they understand the medieval period more? So I'm kind of interested in stuff like that as well.
man,
But I'm not sure it would work because then if you kind of go off piece and cast fireball and everything,
yeah, it's a bit.
I'm not sure.
Uh,
Might be slightly more difficult to do.
yeah, a bit. Let's tone down the wizards then a bit, and those
Yeah.
pesky sorcerers. They're
So
they're
that's
they're
still a
they're a
very
bit.
much just a little noodle in my brain. It's not. I've not worked out how I would do that yet, but
Man, imagine
I'm
playing
intrigued.
as knights from orders and stuff like that. That sounds amazing. Making a group of knights just going on cleaning the countryside. No, this is very all interesting, and I love your background influencing all of that and helping you with all of that. Uh, I had also the first watch on the show, and it's very fun how you mentioned how all your players as well are doing PhDs in. Did you say
Yeah.
in similar or same fields?
Yeah. So we've got how many? Three medievalists, two classicists, and then
Oof.
someone who works in a museum.
Oh,
So
oh my God. The dream party. Dream
yeah.
party.
So yeah, we definitely like ask too many questions about certain aspects. But that happened to me when I was playing in my first ever game of Call of Cthulhu. It was modern, so we were looking at like computers a lot, and we had
Hmm.
this guy who worked in IT, and he'd be like, "Please, can you explain everything about how the internet Wi-Fi router works?" And I'd be there like, I know nothing about this."
Listen,
So
at least he
it
didn't
has
ask you
happened
for the
to me as
code.
well.
At least he didn't ask you for the code. It's good.
Yeah,
It's
I
good.
was at least a player there, so I could just sit back like,
Uh,
this is no, I don't know
mm,
what's happening here.
no, it's really fun. Our DM is a microbiologist, so it's potions,
Yeah,
alchemy, all of that. We have to be exact. We have to be
yes.
exact, and it's great. It's great. I love it. I love it when people can translate their know-how into the game. Like that's the best thing. That's why playing with engineers is the craziest stuff I have ever
Mm,
done.
mm.
Those I excuse myself for doing those bastards will tie anything to an arrow and shoot it.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Um,
I always say the worst thing I've ever done is trying to order pizza with mathematicians
oh God.
because I'm like, we can get this discount if we add the dough balls and take the dough balls off, and then we buy another pizza and then we take that off. And half an hour later, like, I'm just hungry. I just want pizza.
Bruh, just order pizza, my guy. It's okay. I'm hungry. Uh, how much freedom should a one shot give players?
That's a good question. I think it should give the illusion of freedom,
Ooh,
but doesn't
spicy.
necessarily give you too much.
Mm-hmm.
The DM needs to know what's happening, and I
Mm-hmm.
think if you imagine it like the yes no flowchart,
Mm-hmm.
there should be enough options that by the end they can know how it fits into one of those options.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there should also necessarily be sort of bits where you can channel back to
Mm-hmm.
the story. Is That's what I like at least, and that's what I try and design. Is that there should be enough freedom for the players to explore, but also there should be slightly hidden rails. I know we don't like the term railroading, but actually it is quite useful in this case because you need to
Oh,
finish,
absolutely.
within
I,
time.
I don't like the stigma that is around
Yeah,
railroading because railroading can be done very well.
because you can do it very subtly. You don't
Exactly.
need to tell them that you're doing it. So
Exactly.
yeah,
I
as I
don't
say,
I
I
don't
think
like the stigma around it. Yeah.
it should feel very natural for the players, but the
Mm-hmm.
DM should still feel confident that they know where they're going.
Mm-hmm.
Is what
Mm-hmm.
I would say on that. Final answer.
You
Lock it
you can call home if you need to. You can call your dad. Maybe he will give us a second opinion on it.
in.
But yes. Oh man. Now a question floated out of my head. It's on the tip of my tongue. God damn it. God, what I was about to ask. Oh yeah. When you sit down to write the story, specifically the
Mhm.
story that is
Yeah.
going through the one shot,
Yeah.
Do you like make a mental map of things? Do you do the yes, no, maybe this happens flow chart, or how does that process go?
Yeah, I make a physical one. I write it down on paper
Mm-hmm.
and I work out. So I tend to use, it's called the node method, I think. Someone on the internet had made it up. And it's basically, instead of saying you go to point A to point B to point C, you say, um, these are the locations they could go to. Even if they go in the other orders, there should be clues leading back to those different ones. So you eventually
Mm-hmm.
end up at point D, which funnels back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that's how I kind of plan it out before I start writing, is sort of go, okay, in chapter one, they're going here, chapter
Mm-hmm.
two, they're going here, chapter three, they're going here. How do they get from chapter one to chapter three? And where are they going in the meantime?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, one shots usually refer to one session and you're done.
Yeah.
But would you ever be interested in writing a one shot that is like 3 sessions, maybe two,
Yeah,
something like that?
definitely. So one that does that is the Pudding Fair. Uh, I think a lot of people have played that, and it's you go to this halfling festival.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to give away the plot twist, but basically
Everyone
you're there for
spoilers.
longer than you think. But that takes, it says on the thing it takes about 4 hours. It does not. It takes at least 6 hours. So most people who play it will probably want to pause and play that over at least 2 sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that that's fine as long as you're aware that that's going to be the case.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think you could definitely write sort of a contained adventure
Mm-hmm.
that could last over 2 or 3 sessions.
Mm-hmm. Do you think one shots are a bit underappreciated? I mean, everybody speaks about massive worlds, grand
Mm,
campaigns, a DM coming up with, as I said, an entire world, its own ecosystem, economic system, everything. Do you think that um, one shots are a bit in the shadow of that, especially in recent times, since actual play has become a thing, since Critical Role?
mm,
I mean,
mm.
sadly, I have to mention Critical Role, and
Of
I have
course, of
nothing
course.
against them because they started the D&D boom in this day and age.
Mm.
Do you think maybe one shots are a bit underappreciated?
I think it depends where you're looking, because I think I have seen a rise in people talking about them, but that's also because I'm on RPG Twitter.
Hmm.
So, like, I will obviously see more of them because I'm looking for them and I'm talking
Hmm.
about them.
And of
So, for
course,
me,
you're
it doesn't seem
making
like that.
them, of course.
I do think that there's a heavy emphasis on playing the Wizard of the Coast adventures, which I
Hmm.
don't think
Oh, can I just say the Tomb of
everyone wants to worry
Annihilation
about
is
it.
terrible?
See, I've never DM'd an official campaign.
Oh no, me neither, because it terrifies me.
Yeah, and
It's
it's
just so
very, yeah, it's
much.
intimidating to
It's
try
very
and
intimidating,
take that
and
all
my
in.
head hurts. My thinker box hurts. But but yes, it's like they come out with these grand books, which are worlds in and of itself.
Yeah,
It loses the flavor of a one shot.
well, it's not. Yeah, it's just not designed to be like that. It's
Yeah.
designed for this very long campaign. So I think, depending on, I think it really depends on kind of your individual RPG circle,
Hmm.
because if all of your friends are playing all these big campaigns, you will assume you need to. But
Hmm.
if you're playing with a lot of other people who like one shots, so for example, me and my friends, we have a little Facebook group called DM's Worst Nightmare, where we
Oh.
just are like, hey, who's free this weekend? We want to play one shot. So for us, we do that all the time. So for me, I'm like, well, one
Hmm.
shots are really common. Loads of people play them, but that's my group of friends. So
Hmm.
are they underappreciated? Maybe if you just don't know about them.
Hmm.
That's a bit of a
Hmm.
cop out of the question, but I think,
The
yeah.
the secret subculture of one shots in the
Yeah.
tabletop RPG landscape. Yeah. Mm, mm. Oh man, this tea is good. Um, mm. Would you ever work on a campaign, like as a book, as a like a supplement that
I
they're
see.
already creating? Do you think it's a natural translation? Like you were a player, you turned into a DM, you wrote your own one shot. Is it? Do you feel not the need, I would say, but something in your brain nagging you? Okay,
Yeah.
it's your
Is it a
turn
goal?
now. Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Really, I haven't really thought about it too much. I think I would want to get a bit more experience DMing a longer campaign
Hmm.
first, is the only thing
Hmm.
I would say with that, because particularly as the campaign I'm running is designed to have lots of short bits, it obviously the
How long?
practice
How
I'm
long does
going
a
to.
session usually last? I mean, you don't have to answer me. That's all up to
Oh,
you.
usually like 3 hours,
Mm-hmm,
I think.
mm-hmm.
So I, I mean, it would be cool to write one, but also I'm not like, oh, I must do one, or I'm not complete as a writer, or something like that. I'm happy to just do stuff I want to do, really. And then if someone else wants to get me to join with them, that's cool as well. Like in the case of the Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
So you just
I
reached
just
out to
I just
them.
want to write interesting stories.
So you just reached out to them. Hey guys, can I write something for you? And they were like, hell yeah, hop on board.
Well, in the case of the Candy Rounds one, they had put out a call, so I
Mm-hmm.
said, "Oh, here's my pitch for this." Um, but yeah, I mean,
These are
I'm
my
sort of keeping my eyes peeled
credentials.
for other things like that.
Mm-hmm. Are you the only one that got a chance at that, or?
I actually don't know. I think a few other people reached out, but I don't know the specifics. So
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh, okay. I'm just asking, just out of curiosity. It's
yeah,
fine. I was just
that
interested
is
in
not
knowing.
that is not information I am privy to, so
Oh,
I
oh,
cannot
oh,
answer.
oh! They're keeping you in the dark. Well, that's great. And honestly, thank you for this great talk.
Yeah,
And I hope to see more from you. Honestly, especially the medieval thing. I
yeah,
think
hopefully.
for some reason I don't know why when that happened. I think D&D, which was usually a medieval kind of setting, like original D&D. Of course, there was
Mm,
fantasy elements, but it was based on the good old Arthurian legends and stuff like that, the
yeah.
big bad orcs and stuff. It's kind of fallen to the wayside, I would think. I'm not
Mm.
completely, but it kind of got replaced with these high fantasy action packed sort of things.
I mean, I would say like a lot of my stuff is like Spartop is like that as well. So I like a bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think it's fun to include fantasy elements. I do think I'm really enjoying seeing a proliferation of different different parts of medieval history. Like our understanding of what medieval means is very westernized. So it's
Yeah.
nice to see like for example, the Sina Una setting, which is based on I think Philippines like mythology, and
Ooh.
like there's something else that came out recent, like is in its Kickstarter for an African setting. Stuff like that I think looks really really interesting because why would you not want to bring in more things and you kind of mix it all together and see it and
Yeah,
try different stuff.
yeah.
So
I love how The Witcher, when it came, not the books, but when
yeah,
the show came and everyone in the Western civilized world found out about Slavic mythology and stuff like that,
yes, yeah,
and there was a huge boom of that. And I was like, since I am a
I
technically,
didn't know that.
it is, I live in a Slavic country, and it's like, oh wow, you people are just now noticing how cool,
Yeah.
what cool shit we have, like, oh my god, didn't you know about the cockatrices and stuff like that? Like,
Yeah.
we have monsters for days, my guy.
Yes.
uh
You would probably like the Uncaged anthology then, because they've got a whole book themed around
I will look that, hold
that
on,
sort of
I
stuff.
need to write that down because I have short-term memory, because I'm uncaged, how did you say?
Yeah. Uncaged anthology.
Anthology. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. I learn something every time I talk to someone. That is great.
You're welcome.
Oh.
But yeah, no, I think just to get back to that point, like we have a very westernized view of what medieval is, but also like this is something I see in academia as well. We have quite a like anglicized view, and that can also be used by people in like not good ways. So like the term Anglo-Saxon has been taken on by like kind of right-wing groups, unfortunately, to
Mhm.
be like, "Oh, we're so amazing because we're Anglo-Saxon." Like that's not the case.
Yeah, everybody will.
Frustrates me.
I think that's the thing with generally grasping for ancestry and stuff like that. I think
Yeah,
that comes more from that. Like, look how cool we used to be.
yeah. Whereas
I think that
actually,
comes from that.
yeah. But actually, if you look at like what we think medieval is, it's often quite Victorianized and things like that. So, like, there's nothing wrong, I think, with having a medieval themed campaign. But
Hmm.
like, even having a campaign where I'm playing with a load of other medievalists, we don't stick very closely to that. We just bring in the bits that we think are interesting.
Oh, of
So,
course, of course.
yeah,
You pick and choose. It's simple. You take the
exactly. Yeah,
things that are actually interesting because
yeah,
um, like some things weren't as interesting. Something were like downright depressing, some might say. But
Yeah,
yeah, you choose those things that are most
yeah,
comfortable with.
yeah. So like as you're saying, like I enjoy writing things based on like sort of
Mm-hmm.
in quotes traditional, but in actuality westernized medieval perception. But I also really enjoy bringing all those other things. So I
Mm-hmm.
think probably like I'm excited to work on some projects that are based on the bit I know about, but I also really enjoy seeing stuff from people with lots of different backgrounds,
Mm-hmm.
just because it makes everything more interesting.
Oh, for sure. For sure. There is so much in this world, so many cultures, so many time periods that are worth exploring and putting them into this highly customizable system and world
Yeah.
of tabletop RPGs. That's why I personally very much love Vampire the Masquerade.
Mm.
Have you heard about Vampire
I've
the
not
Masquerade?
played it, but I know of it.
Yeah, for instance, they have a very interesting. When I got into it, when I started, let's put it a bit better. When I
Yeah.
started exploring it, I was very fascinated by the fact that I saw like legit rule books that let you play. Usually, Vampire the Masquerade is played in the 21st century,
Yeah.
and I saw books like Vampire the Masquerade Rome, Vampire the
Yeah.
Masquerade Greece, Constantinople, all those very interesting parts of history put into that, and I was like, oh my god, I would have never come up with that, because
Yeah. Yeah.
usually people are limited, not always. That's what I should rephrase that. Usually people are limited by the core book.
Yeah.
Because they think, oh, that's the right way to play. I should use this. I should use
Yeah.
that. So some people are maybe scared of branching out into doing their own thing and stuff like
Mm.
that. So I think a
Yeah.
one shot, trying to do a one shot, is an excellent way to even work on yourself, as a
Yeah.
to
It lets
open
you
up yourself and
dabble a
stuff like
little
that.
bit.
Exactly.
Yeah. Just dip your toe into something a bit different and see if you like
Yeah,
it.
just, oh, let me try this out. I'll make a one shot, nothing special,
Yeah.
and it'll work out.
Just try it.
Oh, let's try trial and error. Everything is trial and error. Oh, this was thank you for a very casual insight and especially insightful talk in the process of writing a one shot and stuff like that. And I hope I get to have you on here when you do your next one. Like legit,
Yeah.
I would love to have you again. This was a wonderful talk,
Yes.
and I love the passion you have behind it.
Yes.
I
And
oh,
next time we will talk only about statues.
yes.
Statue time. No.
No, I need to speak about I don't know how to say it in English. Reliefs. I don't know. Pictures in
Oh,
churches. I need to
yeah,
speak
yeah.
about that. I need to speak about Christian iconography. Did you know there are like 6 different Marys?
Yes.
It's crazy, my God.
Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
turn this
I will talk
into a
about this. Yeah,
history
we'll talk about this
channel.
too long. But yes.
We'll talk about history next time, people.